Just challenge, you can see one thing and the other. Right?
Good evening. I think what time it was.
Michelle said it's all dark.
What?
We've got legal counsel, therefore the numbers aren't.
Did you hear anything from Carol?
Nothing. I thought they would have been here tonight. Here's the one for you to get signed for later.
Okay.
And then we're on recordings on whenever you're ready.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We'll start the planning commission meeting. We're not sure where two of our members are, but we are legal, so that's all that matters. That's, they won't arrest us tonight. Anyway, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 20th.
Yes, that's yours.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Sam moves and Ben seconds. There is discussion or question? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay, any public participation on agenda items? And I'm saying public who are not on the schedule to participate in the agenda items. Nobody? Okay. And now we'll go to old business, Sheets rebuild plan.
You guys want to?
You're Mr. Sheets, no,
Yes,
we'll make you that tonight, okay?
Yeah, that's me. I'll bring the board up just so everybody can see it again in case there's any questions. So you guys have seen this plan a few times already. As you guys might know, Sheets is looking to redevelop the Sheets right around the corner at the traffic circle. So this is the plan for the new building down the way. So we submitted for preliminary. We had preliminary approval. And then we resubmitted for final land development. Craft Municipal Group reviewed the plans and they issued a letter. So in general, there's really nothing in the letter that I don't think that we can comply with. There were a couple things that we wanted to discuss, if that's what we can do right here, or if you guys have any questions, we can start off with that.
Scott, are you satisfied where we are?
I would say, yeah, if he has some discussion points to bring up about the letter, I'd say let's start there. And then I knock out some other comments.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not sure if you guys have a copy of the letter. So one of the comments, zoning comment 2 in Craft Municipal's letter is stating, it's talking about the drive-through facility. So then the comment is stating that at the preliminary plan approval, it was discussed putting a restricted note on the plans to restrict the drive-through. On the comment it says drive-way.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that was the first thing. We want to make sure that it's talking about the drive-through, not necessarily the drive-way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Change the word to drive through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But then-
you're there.
The other point that I believe when Sheets was here and discussing that comment, it would be their preference, and I think the Planning Commission also talked about potentially writing that into either the developer's agreement or on the zoning application, rather than having a note on the plans. And it would be Sheets' preference to have that in the developer's agreement, if that's acceptable with the township.
My only concern with doing that is that kind of goes away after the 18-month maintenance period.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it stays recorded,
Mhm.
but we don't typically look back to that
Okay.
once approval. So I think my recommendation, if the zoning officer disagrees, but my recommendation would be to put it on the zoning permit.
Right, and that's really what I think it felt. It was the zoning permit, was to put it on the zoning permit so that's
Yeah, it
Moving forward.
could be a condition of the zoning permit.
right. And I think that's what Sheets was in preference of.
Okay.
If
And
that's,
to be honest, when I was doing the review, I wasn't exactly sure where we landed on that one. I know there was discussion of what best captured it to make sure that it was always there.
so it'd be the zoning permit.
Michelle, if you're fine with the zoning permit there, then.
Okay, so that'll be response,
That'll be
and there'll be a
fine.
response in the letter basically saying that there'll be a condition of the zoning permit. And that'll be simple.
If you want us to look at the language before it gets issued, we can do that.
Okay, great. Then a couple comments in here had to do with coordination with the solicitor. So a couple things that I just had questions on about that. Does the township have any draft agreements in terms of stormwater, HOP, things like that, that they could either forward to Sheets as a jumping off point for the agreements rather than starting from scratch, or is there?
The HOP stormwater one's gonna be a new one. That's
Okay.
not something that I can think of that we have a sample.
Okay.
Because you're talking about the fact that we're applying for the permit, you guys are gonna maintain the stormwater in the right of way, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, with that one. I actually made a note to myself as I was reviewing this. I think we should do two separate. I think we should do a standard stormwater and an HOP stormwater. I want to look to see if we have a stormwater agreement from the original plan. Scott, what are your thoughts on an amended, or do you want a new one?
I
think
think for this, if there was one originally, I think amended would be fine.
Okay.
You're talking about the standard stormwater.
Yeah, not the right of way one. It's the standard stormwater management agreement.
Yeah, I would.
Let me, if you have a card, or I can get your email.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who would have that plan?
Get that figured out.
In our file somewhere?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have the original
Okay.
agreement from when there was just the first layout. But to scratch that and start a new one or amend the old one, I don't
Okay.
think either way.
What I'll do is if we have one from the original construction, I'll send that to you.
Okay.
And it'll just be a matter of amending that, so that'd be something we would prepare.
Okay.
That's not a standard form we have, so I'd have to reinvent the wheel in that case.
Right, and that's what I think Sheets is kind of, Sheets is, willing to obviously go into those agreements with the township. They just want if the township is comfortable with a certain type of document or language or something like that as a jumping off point, Sheets is most likely gonna be okay with it. We just wanna make sure that it makes everything easier for both sides. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
I don't think we can do an amended improvements agreement because of the time length, and like I said, they go way after the 18-month maintenance period. So I think in this case, it's better to do a new one. I can send you the form.
Okay.
We have a standard form. And I may have said this before, my apologies. I had to apologize. I was sick for 2 weeks and got totally behind. If I send you the form, it might say City of Running.
We'll amend it to say Richmond Township project, so. Yeah, we'll run through it and make sure that everything is correct and, just so we can get these kind of hammered out.
Okay.
Number 4 in the subdivision.
What's that?
Number 4 on the second page, the salvo, that's the pumping agreement for the holding.
Yeah, so Sheets just forwarded me a pumping agreement today, which I'll forward over to you guys. So obviously they had a pumping agreement for the previous layout and development, and it's kind of on I can't remember the frequency off the top of my head, but they have an agreement in place, and I think they're amending that agreement with them for the new development. So I'll forward that over to you guys so that you guys know.
I don't know that came up it may have at the planning commission, but I know Chris had brought it up at the last
Yeah, I
board
mentioned it
meeting
to
as
Chris
well.
because we couldn't find it. What we have is on our standard holding tank agreement, so we may revise that one.
Okay. Yeah, but providing the plumbing agreement isn't a problem. Sheets has that. I can probably get that to you in the next year or so.
I don't think the prior holding tank agreement was recorded, and we like to have it recorded, so.
Okay. So the developers agreement, the HOP, the stormwater management agreement, those are all things that we'll figure out and hammer out, whether they're new documents or amended documents. And then there was one note on the plans that I believe was recommended, general note 23, general comments to be reviewed by the solicitor to confirm all parties agree with the implications of the township's review. So we can modify that note on the plans to whatever township needs. That was kind of the standard note that was left over from the sketch plan and also from the plan from a different agency. So we can work together on that and just have to amend it as needed.
So we're looking at if they can get everything up from Michelle to give you approval, we can go to final plan.
Yeah, I think they're pretty close. Most of it, as he said, if they're in agreement to comply with the other comments on here,
Yes.
there's probably 2 other just quick ones. The owner of the property, technically, they lease the property.
Yes, so, yeah, there's an owner of the property, and Sheets has an equitable lease on that property. So then the question becomes, who is the people that need to sign the plans? Is it the actual owners, or would it be the equitable owners, or both, or how do we want to work that out?
I would have both, because they're not gonna purchase the property, correct?
Not to my knowledge, no. So you'd want both owners.
Because I think when we did this, if my memory's correct, when we did this previously, we had both signed, so they're both gonna have to sign the agreements. So I think the best way is to put either owner, equitable owner, or owner and developer.
Okay, so then they'll sign the
Just wanna
plans.
Quickly on that one, just because it's come up too often. Just who-
So 2 spots for the signatures on the plans for both the owners and the equitable owners or the developers. And then also on the agreements, both the owners and the developers. That should be.
And I recall, I don't know if it was this one or the funeral home, but I know we had to do that part.
But that answers that question. So we can modify the plans, get that together, and get that over to you guys. You can see it, and then we'll get the agreements hammered out.
And if you can isolate and send me the general note that you want us to review, I'd
Sure.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I'm gonna do all this.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, no problem.
The only other one was, we talked about, there was the modification on the stormwater for the isolation distance for the well. Part of that included having the township indemnified as part of that.
The 75 feet or 50 feet is
Yeah.
from that.
So we need an indemnification agreement then.
That was the only other one that just looking through it that we needed, that I wanted to bring up, just to make sure that that was radar as well.
So it'll just be another agreement to add to the list of agreements that needs to be checked, which is fine. It's just, yeah, we should get along.
Yeah.
But I think, everything else concur with to, include the developers agreement, and then, I think I'll get you the revised plans as quick as we can, and hammer out as many of these as quick as possible. That's the goal.
Okay, so I guess we're looking for one, correct?
Are you comfortable with the conditional, or do you want to wait till?
I think-
Conditional? A final plan development approval plan. Okay, Ben moves, Sam has seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Thank you very much. I'll give you guys and get the plan, get this project going. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to new business.
Good evening. My name's John Hufford, and I'm representing the Winthrop subdivision this evening. To give you a location, it's directly out 222. It's on both sides of the road. It's a total area of 22 acres, and it is enrolled currently in clean and green through the center of 222. There's at least 10 acres on either side of the road. In this particular case, the residue lot, or the existing house and farm lot, did have a well, sewage, residential in nature, along with the farming of the tract. Since it's a subdivision, in case that house system functions, we have another alternate area in which to place. I guess it's the northwestern side of 222. We did 2 soil tests for future use, should it ever change from its current use of agriculture. Any questions immediately on the subdivision itself? Then I know we do have a review letter from Scott dated June 14th that we can go over.
Okay, my only question is, has the highway department been contacted, PennDOT been contacted?
No.
on What's going to happen there?
What we did was we contacted the engineer and staff immediately as we were starting up the subdivision. And because no matter what we do, we're gonna guess where I believe a possible driveway should be. So what we did on the subdivision plan, we demonstrated that we have over 500 foot of site distance at a separate location. Near would be the adjoining, I think it's an apartment building. I think it, but for the most part, there is a driveway there in its present location used by the farmer that farms this particular tract. And we simply demonstrated that we meet or exceed the safe distance requirements of PennDOT. So no, we're deferring it because if in fact this tract is ever used for anything other than ag use, they're gonna come in possibly in the center of the lot to give them use of the entire frontage. I'm guessing what it could be, I don't know. So that's why we're requesting that it simply be deferred to a later date. We do have the standard note that, a PennDOT permit has to be obtained. But in fact, by us showing that we at least meet or exceed the minimum safe distance requirements, in my opinion, I do not believe one's necessary at this time.
Okay, you want to go over the review letter?
Oh, we can do that, and there is one comment in here, John, that I probably have it. We don't, but I think it's best for the discussion.
Sure.
Just quickly, just because it is a small 2-lot subdivision, they have the process in the ordinance to allow it to be a sketch final plan. So it's covered under that section 701. There's some information for the lots we're asking to be added. Specific to the lot in the zoning district, there are 2 notes. One, basically, the rural agricultural zoning district allows single-family attached dwellings by conditional use, asking that note to be put on there. So it is permitted, but it's by conditional use only. I just see it. I think it's good practice to have that on there, just so that it's
No problem.
better not to
We agree to that.
Control nuisance disclaimer for subdivision of a tract note. That's standard for this district. Basically stating that there is or can be agricultural in the area. Just a standard note that goes on there. It's pretty lengthy.
So in other words, if it's in clean and green, there's a 7-year rule back on the.
That it's a separate for the clean and green. And I think the clean and green, it is in clean and green.
It is,
Okay.
it is enrolled in clean and green.
Yeah, which I'm assuming is why it's both lots stayed above the 10 acres.
Yes.
No, this is separate strictly for the zoning district. I
Okay,
think because it's primarily an agricultural district. The only other comment I was going to make is that the lots, the buildings themselves, where they're located, they're not changing anything for those locations. They're as close as they are to the right of way, as well as the highway itself. But creating this does create the building setbacks where they're technically in violation of the building setbacks that weren't there prior, simply because this was a single lot. So by creating that, it's
You're creating a non-conforming lot.
creating a non,
No, it's existing non-conforming
Existing.
today, but because we're showing the setbacks, it's just on notice.
Okay,
So we have no problem placing the appropriate note that in fact the existing structures on that lot are to be considered existing non-conforming structures.
one of you just nod your head the other way.
just, yeah, only because the creation of
but
the
the
2
non-conformity
lots.
is because of the subdivision, correct?
So, you know,
The non-conformity is because of the subdivision, or they are already a non-conformity?
Already.
non-conforming in the setback from the highway,
Yep.
but not necessarily the building setback for the new building setbacks for that residue lot. There was never a,
Oh, there's no building over there. So they would have to, if lot number 1 is ever developed, they would have to comply with the current zoning regulations.
I'm speaking to the existing buildings, the barn and
Oh,
the dwelling itself.
on the residue tract.
Yeah, that they're creating a lot line down the center of 222, so therefore there's the new setback from that property line. That setback line now has these existing buildings within a front yard setback that weren't there previously.
I somewhat disagree, Scott, and Michelle can chime in. And the only reason I'm saying that is no matter where the lot line is in 222, and it just so happens to be in the center, the right-of-way line exists for 222 on either side of the road. And therefore, if there's any building from the right-of-way line, you would have to go back to the appropriate setback. And that's what doesn't meet today's code. That barn was probably set off the edge of the road 20 foot. It's not even near. It's just outside the right-of-way, but it's well within the setback. So I'm taking the position, I'm not creating the lot line in 222, although I am. When you go from the right-of-way line of 222 back to setback, they are existing non-conforming structures. The lot line does not create the non-conformity. The right-of-way line does, and that's already in place. I didn't want to have to go before zoning for any such relief when in fact, in my opinion, no relief is necessary. That's my interpretation of my opinion.
Are we
I think,
looking at 2 different setbacks?
I agree with them. I agree with you completely, John, on the right of way, the PennDOT right of way. I don't think there's anything changing on that setback whatsoever. It's pre-existing. I just think that the new boundary created down the center of 222 then creates zoning setbacks for each one of those separate properties that weren't there previously. With that said, they're not proposing anything new within those. They're pre-existing buildings, but I think you're creating a lot line that was not there to be in violation of previously. Not lot
So,
line, yeah.
I
Setback
agree with you
lines, I'm
with the road right-of-way setback, that is a non-conformity. I don't have the ordinance, and I think the question, Scott, correct me, is,
I'm looking
and I'm
at
saying this for
the,
the purpose of discussion, I'm not agreeing either way at the moment, but you're saying now because they have a lot line in the middle of the road, do they now this violates, they're creating a lot line in this, and creating a violation?
that was, yeah, and this was, and again, I apologize. I thought I had a note on there stating the center line and the pre-existing condition of the with the right of way, but now you're creating a front yard setback that these buildings are, although pre-existing, that front yard setback was not pre-existing. That's the new line that's being shown for that lot.
Is that how we measure the front yard, is from the center line, or from the lot
right of
line?
way. It's from the right of way line.
If we're considering from the right-of-way line,
Yeah.
I think it is a
Pre-existing.
pre-existing non-conformity, yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. And that's why I was just trying to, I see why you're saying that, because they're creating the lot line, but I think because we're measuring it from the right-of-way line.
Okay.
Maybe add a note, just saying, any future development on this site shall comply with current zoning or shall not, something along those lines, so that we're not creating anything additional in violation.
You, I think, have in your zoning ordinance an expansion of a non-conforming lot, non-conforming structure. So it's quite covered in your ordinance that protects you, the township, that if you're going to expand, you can't make the non-conformity any worse. You are allowed to expand it
50%.
maybe up to 25 or whatever the percentage is, but as long as the non-conformity, you can't move it forward or closer to 222.
Yeah.
But you can go to the side or to the back.
As long,
Yeah, I think Michelle is exactly like you're saying, that setback would be set off of the right of way line. So the property line, and if that's what you're getting at, I
Right.
apologize for the
No,
slow comprehension of it, but yeah, you're creating a property line that the setback is not dependent on. It's dependent on the right-of-way line, so it is pre-existing.
There are certain municipalities that do require from the lot line a minimum distance of build of 100 foot or whatever it may be, but in your case in Richmond Township, that statement doesn't exist. It goes off of what would be the 222 right-of-way line, to which we are showing.
Or, yeah, it's not changing, so.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're getting close to the same page.
I think
Yeah.
we're all gonna nod our heads yes soon.
But even if PennDOT changes, it's still gonna be non-conformity, so if PennDOT wants to come in and take the barn, that's between them and PennDOT, so.
All right.
If for some reason, because that's the closest, if they wanna expand that, so. Okay.
Okay, so it'd be, to add that note, would probably be the best thing to do is just
Just
make note of the pre-existing non-conformity.
I could do that.
So now you're gonna make me hold this plan, and I'm.
Well, good luck with that.
No, I'm not, at the moment.
The only other comment worth bringing up, and that we already touched on the last comment for Clean and Green, is that, as he was saying, with lot one, if it were ever to be a residential lot or need a driveway for that access, then they have the note on the plans that it must go through PennDOT and get that approval. We're asking for the additional note of if it is developed that any stormwater erosion control permit needs to be reviewed and approved by DEP or Berks County Conservation District. So simply add that note, assuming that's not going to be a concern.
Not at all. Right now, I am agreeable to all the stated notes that we just spoke of, further restricting the possible or future development of this tract, as well as stating that the existing buildings, the barn and the house, are existing non-conforming structures. Yes, I agree to those terms.
Okay,
I didn't have any further comments other than that curveball I threw, sorry.
okay.
But if he agrees to the notes and adding those, I think it's, for the most part, other than that, straightforward.
So we can move to final? If the notes
It
are,
would be it would be a recommended final because it meets the sketchy and final.
right, so if the notes are taken care of and Michelle gives us the approval, and you give us your approval,
There'd be a conditional recommendation for final approval conditional upon the letter, as well as the added nonconformity note.
you guys got that? Okay? Not, I'll take a motion to move towards that final conditioning on the two more remarks we have just mentioned.
I'll make a motion on that, considering going with those conditions.
Okay, Sam moves,
I can second that.
Ben will second it. All in favor, that's any discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. What I'd like to do, if I may, possibly even this week, I'd like to, because Scott's office is probably less than a mile from ours, if I could get him a hard copy of the plan for him just to look at the notes to make sure that my verbiage or my wording is acceptable to him. And if he nods and says, yes, it is, then I'll make the necessary prints, get the Winklers to sign and seal, or sign and notarize, I'll sign and seal, before we resubmit to you, the township, for your signatures and your supervisor's approval, if that method's okay.
Yes.
I mean, if you guys can get that all done before the 8th, then the supervisors could sign it that night.
That's what I mean, if I can get him, if he has a minute to look at it, I'm sure I can cover those notes within the week.
I can do that for John.
Thank you. All right, well, then have a nice evening all.
Thank you.
Hey, look at that, I hope.
Okay, moving right along. This will get easier.
It's real,
Guess it was a week.
Okay, M4 Motorsports, 14858 Kutztown Road, request for a waiver. Somebody explain all this.
So I'll do the quick part. They're adding a whole building to the property in which, for several reasons, they would like a waiver of the land development from planning commission and board as well. But to go through more detail, I'll leave it to them.
Okay, we're talking about right out here at the old Kutztown Buick dealership.
Yeah. We've got some of them lined up out front and then the
Right,
others in the
okay,
last
everybody
window.
know where we are?
I don't remember.
There's a record store,
You don't have to.
there's a record store right across here too, I think, right? On the old building.
Was it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been here long enough to say yes or no.
A lot then, but.
my name is Jeremy Oakland, by the way, from the Crossroads Group, so we're the engineering consultant for this project. But we are here to ask a waiver of land development. The applicant, Aaron Miller, is proposing this 5,000 square foot pole barn. It is supplemental to the current use. And as I went through the ordinance and talked to the applicant, I was reading through different sections of the ordinance. I said, well, it's supplemental to the use. They're going to use it for car storage. It's just roof storage. They don't want to keep them outside. You want something to put extra cars in. I believe it falls within, I prepared a letter. I don't know if you got a copy of my letter that sent to the township, but I did prepare a letter and said there's a section 1201.31 that allows for a waiver of land development in certain criteria. And I think that we meet that criteria. So it's an ancillary use. It's in harmony with the existing use for the subject tract. The pole barn location meets all the zoning criteria. We made sure we have it set back. We have everything set back in the front yard, side yard correctly. I think the most important thing from my perspective, maybe from engineers, we're siting the pole barn on top of existing impervious surface. So there's no stormwater increase what we're doing. This is this old, somewhat old macadam. Starts to bust up as you go down over the hill, but we sited it over pavement. So there's no stormwater increase. It actually helps to maintain very little disturbance outside of the pole barn itself. We're not proposing any water service. We're not proposing any sewer service. This is just roofed storage for the vehicles. I understand it's all, I hope this all makes sense. I think the engineer's comment in the letter we got, there's one comment about stormwater management, just because we're gonna have roof gutters. If it's all right, what I'd like to do is have a rain barrel. I talked to the client today, if you do some prefab planters or something like that, a rain barrel, you can water your plants and do that. So I collect the roof runoff. We're not increasing it, it's just collecting it in the downspouts. Put it into a rain barrel and reuse it on site somehow. The only alternative is to discharge it over the macadam in the back, and eventually it's going to wash over the edge and the road stuff away. So I think a rain barrel is a good fit if you're okay with that.
Yeah, the concern was just, now you having it falls and goes where it will. This will be piped to one spot really, or maybe two or three, and to just make sure that it's one, not pointed at the neighbor's property, and two, that it does kind of get a chance to just not erode, like he said, further down. I think any kind of an idea along those lines, the stormwater ordinance just doesn't want it going directly at the neighbor's house. So if they can show that they're gonna aim it towards the back of the property, add something to slow that down, I think they can satisfy that through the building permit phase. Our office is looking at that anyway, so we can coordinate to make sure that happens.
Yeah, I just want that documented so that when the property transfers and.
No, I would add that to the
somebody
plan, and I'll note that on where and how it can be handled. I'm fine with that.
I mean, I don't see the need for a formal stormwater agreement in this case. I mean, I'm always in favor of them because down the road it helps us out, but.
I don't think they have to by the stormwater ordinance simply because this is, again, as he was saying, it's old paving. I mean, it's old paving, but it is paved. I mean, you can tell at some point they paved that. So they are utilizing that paved.
So this is the back of the lot right here.
The frontage is here, we're up on the front of the lot.
Yeah,
The back of the paving, it's hard to see. I tried to hatch it in.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the maintenance of this.
The
Making sure
paving
somebody
comes down
knows.
around through here, and then it drops off to the farm fields in the back.
right, but the distance from where the paving stops and the back of the lot, that's,
Oh, 100 feet where the paving stops to the back of the lot, it goes to the woods, there's kind of a creek in the back a little bit. A little, I don't know, drainage ditch or waterway.
Hypothetically, Michelle, if this doesn't have a land development plan, there really isn't anything recorded. Should it be just something noted on the zoning permit?
I do
Or-
stormwater agreements for municipalities, like when there's an exemption or just a small plan. I record those even without a land development plan. Just our simple 13, 14 paragraph stormwater management agreement, and it can say rain barrels, just so, and gutters, so that we know. You know, if the transfers property and it starts running off, we can come say, no, you were given notice, you have to maintain these rain barrels.
I think the client will be comfortable with that. Or rain barrels or other approved by the town or something like that in case they switch something out. I think they'd be fine with that.
Okay, I can send something over and, yeah, it's our standard form, it just provides it before CO, there's an inspection and things like that.
Okay. I don't even think there needs to be any kind of a fee involved. It's just
Because
something
you're doing part of
recorded.
the building permits, but yeah, just something recorded, so.
Okay. Yeah, that was probably one of the two comments that were worth bringing up and just having a little discussion on here for that. I don't know if you have any more you wanna
Maybe
add
the
to
second comment you want to bring up. Is there a second one?
that one. So, yeah, and we can jump in it. So I think for the most part, the proposed building is for the car storage, and Jeff Viant, as the zoning officer, has talked to the property owner just to get a better idea of what they're doing, because there is a building permit, I believe, submitted for this as well.
I think, yes, that was not through my office, but I think that might have gone in before even this.
And I think that kind of sparked the conversation between the two of them, because Jeff he's known the property owner for a while, so he brought up the discussion. My concern was with the 5,000 square foot building and the existing building, you have 153,000 square feet of building. And it is an approved use.
153,
What's that?
is that the whole lot or
Yeah, that's a whole lot. 153 is a whole lot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
153 is not?
Forget what the,
I was gonna say, saying that out loud. I don't know, so if that's, yeah, you're right. It's 2-story. So there is a lot of usable space. 153 is way more than what's the building. Sorry about that. The concern was still that you have the building, the proposed pole building, and how many employees you could have, how many people could be on the site purchasing if they wanted to expand the property into business. But the intent was not to expand any employees, have any kind of improvements needed other than this is strictly a storage building. And that was really why I kind of just checked with the zoning officer.
and that'll be documented on the plan.
Yeah, and I
we
think
can do that. I think I did. That was conveyed to me too, so it's my first time in front of you all, but I try to lead the client down the right path. I said, look, you gotta make sure if you're gonna add employees, these are things that are gonna, in my head, maybe it's not a way of land development at that point. You're adding things, you're adding parking, you're adding these things, but he was clear that you don't wanna do that. It's not to have any staff. Yeah, and I did note it on here, no additional employees are anticipated as part of this improvement. So I wanted to make sure that we had it documented right with the understanding to the client that if it changes, things change. If it changes, it could open up the door to something else later on.
Okay,
I would
So-
probably make that a conditional zoning permit too.
Okay.
so again, we're at the same place as last time. We have a few things to happen, and if they happen, we can go to final plan, right?
Well, they're looking for a waiver of the land development process.
Okay.
They want to just go through, basically, some of the other comments in here really, he already touched on the stormwater, but given the fact that they don't have any dirt that they're disturbing other than the footprint of it, we would like to see in that case that technically they don't have to get that ENS approval unless
I was gonna ask.
Conservation District asks about it. We'd like to see that they do approach the Conservation District about it. Simply because it is impervious area.
Yeah.
Even though you're just, I mean, you have a 5,000 square building. Sheets approached them and said, we'll keep this in a stone condition. And on their permit, they actually have a lot less disturbance than it looks like on the footprint, because they allowed them to keep that stone
Yeah.
area and keep it technically the impervious through this, so there's not exposed dirt.
I can talk to the conservation district, even if it's email correspondence. I'm familiar with, you get down to stone, it may not count as impervious, at least milling doesn't, we're gonna get deeper than that on this. I mean, they're gonna go all the way down to, I won't say virgin dirt, but they're gonna get down into dirt past the stone, so, but we have no problem doing that.
Simply because it's a 5,000 square foot building, we'd like to see that process just. And I'll say on the township's end, we have gotten comments from the Conservation District lately. If we don't mention that and ask for that, they come back and ask the township, well, why didn't you ask for that? And almost, we've had letters written to the township saying there shouldn't have been permits issued without this request from the township because there's a memo of understanding between the two. So we simply trying to cover the township's butt on that to say, let's have that documented or requested and discussed. But I think
5,000, I think, is the minimum threshold to go to.
Okay, we're looking for a motion to avoid land development. Correct?
And I would make the condition on execution of the stormwater management agreement.
Conditions on,
Execution of a stormwater management agreement.
okay. Execution of stormwater management, so what's the feeling of the board? I move we give it approval.
I think we can go ahead.
Okay, you second it?
Yes.
Okay, Sam seconds it. Any discussion or question? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Thanks, Joel.
Going back to one of the issues, the Winkler issues, why are they subdividing it? I mean, I'm a little confused there.
That they want to sell half of it.
Well, maybe, yeah, but it's not very much land. I don't know.
I kind of get the feeling it's possible, this could be that because if they subdivide that and then if they want to put a house or something in the other side, the clean and green actually affects back to the other, so it would, within 7 years, it no longer affects, it's divided off.
It will affect it if they divide.
And not after 7 years, once it's divided, but they can divide it into the two 10-acre lots without affecting either clean and green at this time. However, they want to build into the other one,
Then
it would affect
takes
the other
it.
side also
Okay,
within a 7 year.
okay, so you say it'll only affect half, okay.
And if they want to put another building or just put any kind of development in, it has to have, we met that out at the produce auction when we got that 12 acres for the auction, there, 10 years. And if we would have developed that or put it into with the auction, we would have had back tax on the whole farm.
Yeah.
Until that was divided to the 12 acres and 7 years later, now it's no longer on the whole farm.
So you had to wait 7 years after that?
Yes, and that's 15 years ago already, or 12. So something like that, but, yeah, there's certain things that,
There's ways around it, you're trying to say.
well, it affects that clean and green.
I mean,
But
I'm
it
not,
could be something else also. you
I'm
know,
not
just-
related directly, I'm indirectly, so I didn't want to say anything at that point.
No, I didn't have any more insight onto it, so I couldn't add to it at all.
I mean, going to the highway thing, I'm told that PennDOT has a plan in place. How do you find that out?
Widening. that
Yeah,
section.
yeah.
Did they provide the township with copies of those plans?
Not yet.
I think Sam.
Sam spoke to them, but they were still working on it, because they said that there was a certain, was that last meeting or the meeting before, that they were working on it, but they have not given the plans to the township yet, because they wanna start on getting bids in the next few months. And then it's gonna be acquiring properties, and then it's gonna,
I mean, I see them doing perk tests.
right,
And they've been doing perk tests for a year now. I seen in writing that the project is supposed to start early 2025. So I mean, we're getting there,
yeah.
and you're pretty sure that house and that barn will come away, but I don't know, I guess that doesn't matter to us. I mean, I don't know.
To them, it could, if they want to divide that separate, if you're having a big highway through the middle and having those two farm pieces together, and now they cut a piece off and they would no longer have 10 acres on the other side.
Somebody, well, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if PennDOT has plans out there yet for what they're doing.
Yeah, that's why I asked,
Typically,
I
they
didn't
would
know what
try
would
to-
happen with, when PennDOT would take over or do anything, what that would do anything with that.
I would have to look. I can't remember if we ever had plans.
I mean, are we gonna get ourselves or them in a little bit of conflict here? I don't wanna say trouble, but I mean, if PennDOT wants it, they'll take it. It's
Yeah,
as
I mean,
simple as that.
Yeah, I think that was the conversation, is if PennDOT is gonna adjust the right of way, they're gonna do it regardless if it's one or two lots.
We've done what we had to do for our ordinance, it's, you know, whatever PennDOT wants to do, PennDOT's gonna do.
Well, PennDOT don't give it on a
Right.
power.
Yeah.
I just read that yesterday. so.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, just a concern I had, so that, I guess nobody has miscellaneous business, any of you guys have it, I don't know.
No, I don't.
I'm gonna scratch that off, I don't see much public participation. We gotta use it better in order. No. Okay, I'll accept the motion to adjourn if he's ready to adjourn. Okay,
I'll
Sam
second
moves
that.
and Sam seconds, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, no. Meeting adjourned.
Everybody say CD, I need signatures.
Not mine,
No.
I can go.
the, Walbert Funeral Home
We
plan.
need agreements for that yet.
Walbert, okay. I see
I
that.
think she has one. She has
Sure,
one
my
in
son
there
would know.